Nature is rarely deceptive without a purpose, but sometimes that deception is purely in the eye of the beholder. In the corner of a modern garden, there stands a plant that looks remarkably like a prize-winning blueberry bush. It is laden with clusters of deep, midnight purple fruit. It is heavy, abundant, and visually seductive. To the untrained eye, this is the superstar of the antioxidant world. But this is where the trap snaps shut. If you were to pluck one of these berries and pop it into your mouth, expecting the sweet, tart burst of a supermarket blueberry, you would be instantly punished. The taste is not sweet. It is insipid, bitter, and musky. If the berry is even slightly unripe, it offers a mild toxicity that settles in the stomach with a dull ache. Most gardeners, feeling cheated, rip the plant out. They call it a weed. They call it a fraud. They call it the Garden Huckleberry. But they are making a catastrophic mistake. While the aristocratic blueberry demands acidic soil, constant pruning, and 3 years of patience before yielding a single bowl of fruit, this so-called imposter is a biological machine. It asks for nothing. It grows in poor soil. It ignores the heat. And in just 90 days from seed, it does not give you a bowl. It gives you buckets. This is not a story about a bad berry. This is a story about lost knowledge. We have forgotten how to unlock the code of Solanum scabrum. We have forgotten that some foods are not meant to be eaten. They are meant to be transformed. Welcome to Ancestral Soil. To understand why this plant exists, we must strip away the expectations of the modern American palate and travel back to the nutrient-dense soils of West Africa. Here, the Solanum scabrum is not a disappointing dessert. It is a pillar of survival. For thousands of years in regions like Cameroon and Nigeria, this plant has been revered not as a berry, but as a staple vegetable crop known as njama. The ancient farmers of the Niger-Congo believed in a different philosophy of food. They did not demand that nature serve them ready-to-eat sugar directly from the branch. They understood that the most potent nutrition often comes protected by a layer of defense. In these archives of agricultural history, the garden huckleberry was never eaten raw. To do so would be considered as foolish as eating a raw potato. Both belong to the Solanaceae family, the nightshades. They share a bloodline with the tomato, the eggplant, and the bell pepper. And like its cousins, the garden huckleberry carries a chemical defense system, solanine. This chemical is what makes the raw berry bitter. It is nature's way of saying, wait, do not eat yet. But the ancestors possessed the key. They knew that heat was the catalyst. They harvested the leaves by the basketful to boil into rich, iron-heavy stews that sustained entire villages through the lean seasons. They took the dark berries, which we now scorn, and subjected them to fire. They understood a simple chemical truth that we have forgotten. Heat destroys the toxin. Heat breaks down the thick, leathery skin. Heat unlocks the deep purple anthocyanins, the same compounds found in blueberries, but in concentrations that make the blueberry look pale by comparison. This was not a poor man's fruit. This was a wise man's provision. It grew where other crops died. It fruited when the rains failed. It was a famine breaker. But when this plant crossed the ocean and landed in the manicured gardens of the West, it lost its context. It lost the instructions. And without the instructions, a masterpiece of survival looks suspiciously like a poisonous weed. The archive shifts from the ancient fields of West Africa to the bustling, skeptical world of early 20th century America. The year is 1909. This is the era of Luther Burbank, the most famous plant breeder in the world, the man who gave us the russet potato and the Shasta daisy. He was a celebrity of the soil. But in 1909, he made a fatal miscalculation that would curse the garden huckleberry for over a century. Burbank released a new plant he called the Wonderberry. He marketed it with the aggressive flair of a snake oil salesman. He promised a fruit that combined the sweetness of a blueberry with the vigor of a weed. The seed catalog screamed "new fruit," and gardeners across the nation bought in. They planted, they watered, they watched the bushes explode with thousands of glossy black berries, and then they tasted. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Gardeners expected sugar, they got musk. They expected juice, they got a thick, gritty skin that clung to the teeth. The bitterness of the unripe fruit sent a wave of panic through the public. The press smelled blood. Newspapers declared the Wonderberry a fraud. Botanists attacked Burbank, accusing him of renaming a common poisonous weed, the deadly Solanum nigrum, and selling it to unsuspecting families. They called it a botanical heresy. The New York Times ran headlines questioning Burbank's integrity. The Wonderberry was rebranded in the public mind as a toxic imposter. The plant was ripped from the earth, burned in piles, and labeled a danger to children. The villain in this story was not the plant. The villain was context. Burbank sold a cooking berry as a dessert fruit. He sold a survival crop as a luxury item. By failing to provide the instruction manual, the ancient knowledge of heat and time, he sentenced the Garden Huckleberry to 100 years of obscurity. But nature does not lie. Chemistry does not lie. Today, we reopen the case file on Solanum scabrum. We strip away the scandal and look at the molecular reality. The critics were half right. The Garden Huckleberry is a nightshade. Like the green potato, its raw flesh contains solanine, a glycoalkaloid defense mechanism designed to stop herbivores from eating the plant before the seeds are ready. This is not a defect, it is armor. But here is the science that the 1909 newspapers missed. Solanine is heat labile. It degrades under thermal stress. When you subject these berries to boiling water, the chemical bond breaks, the toxicity evaporates. Furthermore, the skin of the berry is thick for a reason. It is designed to hold moisture in drought conditions. But this skin is highly acidic. This is where the kitchen alchemy begins. When you drop a teaspoon of baking soda, simple sodium bicarbonate, into a pot of boiling garden huckleberries, a violent chemical reaction occurs. The water foams. The murky green liquid suddenly flashes into a brilliant emerald green. This is the alkalinity breaking down the tough pectin in the skins. It neutralizes the bitterness instantly. The stubborn, rubbery berry collapses into a soft velvet pulp. And then the final transformation. When you add sugar and lemon juice, the emerald green shifts again, this time into a deep, regal purple. This purple is not just for show. It is the visual signal of anthocyanins, powerful antioxidants linked to reduced inflammation and cancer prevention. While the modern blueberry sits on a pedestal, offering a modest amount of these compounds, the garden huckleberry, once processed, becomes a nutrient-dense concentrate. Science confirms what the West African tribes knew intuitively. The poison is in the dose, but the medicine is in the preparation. The garden huckleberry is not a fake blueberry. It is a superior biological engine waiting for a pilot who knows how to ignite it. The verdict is clear. The garden huckleberry was never an imposter. It was simply misunderstood by a culture addicted to instant gratification. In a world where supply chains fracture and grocery store shelves run empty, the blueberry bush is a luxury. It is a fragile aristocrat that demands acidic soil, constant pruning, and years of waiting. But Solanum scabrum is a soldier. It asks for no special soil. It laughs at the heat. It grows in the cracks of neglect. And it offers a return on investment that defies the logic of modern agriculture. For the survivalist, the homesteader, and the guardian of the family pantry, this plant is not a weed. It is a biological savings account. But to claim this wealth, You must respect its rules. When you walk into the garden in late summer, the bushes will be heavy, bowing under the weight of thousands of berries. They will turn a deep, glossy black. Do not pick them yet. This is the final test of patience. A shiny berry is a deception. It is still unripe. It is still bitter. You must wait until the gloss fades. You must wait until the skin turns dull, matte, and dusky. Only then has the chemistry shifted. Only then is it ready for the harvest. And the harvest is not a delicate affair. You do not pick these berries one by one. You strip the branches by the handful. In 10 minutes, you will fill a bucket that would take a blueberry picker all afternoon to gather. Bring them inside. Ignite the stove. Add the lemon. Add the sugar. Watch the alchemy happen in the pot. What you are left with is not just a pie filling or a jam. It is a year's supply of vitamin-rich, calorie-dense food, preserved in glass jars, glowing with a purple so dark it looks like ink. This is the food that fueled the Bantu migrations. This is the food that survived the transatlantic crossing. And this is the food that Luther Burbank tried and failed to give to a world that wasn't ready to cook. But we are ready now. We are done with the fragile. We are done with the expensive. We are returning to the plants that fight for us. So let the neighbors keep their finicky blueberry bushes. Let them wait 3 years for a handful of fruit. You have the Garden Huckleberry. You have the buckets. And most importantly, you have the knowledge. The soil remembers. Now, so do you.